I'm 50, I have to count now, I'm 51 now. But I mean, like, my youthful days, like, Minor Threat was still around, so a lot of the, DC scene stuff was still in its prime. It was, that was definitely formative. There was a period of time, like, when I was in art school and I was doing a horrible job skateboarding as well. I just really was kind of like, I just want to be immersed in this culture. Maybe this is what I want to do. I don't know how I ended up here, but I did. I think I sort of chased a love interest into film. And then I'm like there hanging out with people, smoking cigarettes and talking about who's going to be in my film. And I'm like, what am I fucking doing here? And took a winter session course in ceramics. And it was the winter session course specifically with Annabeth Rosen, it was all just pure clay, no film, cigarettes. And it was cathartic. I was like, this is what I want to do. I found it. This is the thing. And ever since then, and I can really point at that, ever since then, clay, and it hasn't lapsed for me, clay has been the perfect material for me. Part of my work incorporates architecture, and I see architecture as sculpture. Particularly industrial buildings, it's about how they function, because they're sort of machinery in a way. I look at old mill buildings. They started building these, sculptural pieces inspired by the mill buildings I was seeing around Providence, and referred to them as phantom industrial objects. Because that, to me, that phrase right there really captures the essence of it. And, I'm totally nerdy for that stuff. You go into these places and the buildings themselves are massive. And they're just purely form and function, but there's something beautiful about the textures that they're sided with, or particularly I love when they're patched and repaired. For a while I was going down and visiting this mill in Weirton, West Virginia. And it had a row of blast furnaces from the early 1900s. It had been idled, so I was, ducking under a fence to get in there and go in and explore. And it's amazing. Everything is huge. Every object you're looking at, you're like, what does that do? And on top of, it was hand and specifically made to right there to do that thing. And you can just sort of feel the history there, feel the energy of the place. I had one trip where I had decided, that's it, I'm going to climb to the top of this 100-foot blast furnace. And I'm going to inspect the whole thing and get shots of all of its parts so I can incorporate them into my sculptural work. And I was just consumed by this. Like, I need to fucking do this. And it was crazy. I'm like talking with some of my friends about it. They're like, okay, be careful. You have all these mill buildings, kind of too big to fail, these giant industries that produced, and now they've just gone into decline. They're not used anymore. So nature starts taking them back. That was something that really resonated with me when I was driving out to these places, particularly the blast furnaces I was describing to you. I got there and I was so fascinated because it was, they were starting to get overgrown with vines and plants, and they're just kind of rusting and decaying into the ground again. And they're in the process of demolition. And so they're monetizing the demolition. So they put a lot of like parts together in piles. And they're just beautifully sculptural, I mean, like, people are like, oh, they're tearing the mill down. But I'm like, this is cool. This is beautiful. And that's something that was an appreciation I got from Annabeth Rosen, because she talked about, like, I remember before class one time that she walked past a construction site and there was a heap of pipes, different iron pipes. And she was like taking pictures of it. And she was like, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen, So I get that, I took that on. I took a trip through, Lackawanna, New York, and saw the hull of, the former Bethlehem steel plant, and that building with this particular cupola on it, I think is a fabulous object, and I'm gonna kind of try to recapture the scent and smell and essence of what that was all about in this object that I'm building. Sometimes I'll poke a hole in the top of it and we'll call it a vessel. I started building it during the coronavirus and then I shelved it. And I've had times where I'm like, I'm just going to put that thing out in the rain. And I put so much work and detail into it. It's not done yet, but I'm just gonna let it. Maybe it's a boat anchor. Maybe I need to let it go. But then I'm like, and all of a sudden I'm like, fuck it, I want to finish it. I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna get paid for it. But I think we got the bills paid for the month. You just got to throw yourself into it and knock a few things over and clutter around till all of a sudden you get your stride. There's a constant process of kind of knocking the rust off or clearing the cobwebs, and the fear can hold you back from doing it. Part of what's made it possible for me to do what I do has been to adapt and sell my work and not sell my soul completely, and I've worked really hard as a self-employed person. I've been self-employed since 1995. I look back on that and that's just friggin' crazy that I'm still here. Had a period of time I alcohol and methamphetamine at one point. That came to a crash and had to make a major change in my life. I was terrified that I wasn't going to be inspired to do my work, to do creative things ever again, because drugs and alcohol had incorporated themselves into my system of doing to such a degree I didn't feel like that they could exist apart anymore. And again, no judgment call. I know plenty of people that can take the nickel tour, plenty of people that drink and they can, do whatever and they're fine. That's their business. But for me, it got to the point I just stopped doing my work altogether. I mean, it was a disaster, So I came to a bottom. I'm in this recovery and I'm asking myself, will I ever want this again? And the thing that I could remember most pointedly was when I was a little kid and I would hang out either with my friends or it would just be me. And I would be like, I want to draw. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Oh, let's draw. I want to do that. I'm totally excited about it. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm going to draw and I get to do a line of coke afterwards, It's like, or I need to do, this. It's like, I just want to do it. And I was terrified that was gone, that was done. And, it came back. It was okay. It took a long trip around the sun for me to get there. But, man, it's so good now. I gotta laugh at myself, I got to. But I hope you are feeling the love that I have for this, that's real. And I'm always excited about, people that have that same fire.